Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Samantha Cunningham, and because I'd appreciate a good mark in my communications technology class at school, I'm creating this tutorial on how to make a very basic cover for an album or a CD disc. Today we'll be working with text tools on how to make text go from very basic to something that would catch somebody's eye. We're also going to do today's cover in black and white simply because it is a lot easier to make text show up on black and white. That being said, it's not very difficult to work with colored album photos as long as the colors are consistent, but that's irrelevant. So here's my finished product for today. I did it very briefly. It took me about maybe 10 minutes at the tops, but I'm a perfectionist, and of course it all depends on your level of perfectionism and also how experienced you are with Photoshop. We're going to be working with text tools, like I said. We'll also do a little bit of touching up on spots and fixing blemishes and stuff. I've added in my own eyeliner to the photo using a paintbrush, so we're going to do that today as well. And of course how to make a good balance with your black and white adjustments. So first of all, I'm going to get rid of this. We're going to start from something new. So go to File, New, and Blank File. The basic measurements for a typical CD disc cover is 12 centimeters by 12 centimeters. I'm going to leave it at 300 pixels per inch. If you plan on uploading your photo to the web, it would be best to change your resolution to 72 pixels per inch, but because I'm just keeping this on my computer today and I'd like a fairly crisp file and a fairly large file, I'm going to keep the resolution at 300. Pick a name for your individual project, for that's what it will save as if you save it as a Photoshop file, and also how it will save if you save it as a JPEG file, which is what I suggest doing once you're done. For this, I'm just going to call it Sam's Album and start. Now, CD covers are square, that's why it's 12 by 12, which means that your photo also must be square. I'm going to go back here and go all the way down to my background photo here. I have auto select layer off so that I will be able to move this over here. Now, this photo that I've taken today in my bathroom about 5 minutes ago, just for this little experiment here, was much too big for the file, so we're going to scale it down. Make sure your proportions are correct. Now, I've already taken this photo and cropped it square. The original of my picture was indeed much larger than square. Just for a recap, if you've never made a photo perfectly square before, you take your crop tool here and drag it. Now you can create any size you want, but if you want to keep your dimensions perfectly square, just hold down the Shift button and it will automatically square it up for you. And you can click and drag as wide as you need. Check mark, it's square. Now, for me, well, we're going to make this black and white, so it's not a big deal anyways. I'm not wearing any makeup in this photo. My hair isn't brushed. 'Tis the facts, and I don't particularly care, but I mean, if you plan far ahead, you'll know exactly how you want your cover to look. You also must plan ahead on your picture being square, so you can't have a lot of action in a landscape unless you're prepared to create filler for that photo. Now, my first step here will be turning this picture black and white. So we're just going to do that. You go to Image. That's where you can do your crop and your rotate and your transform. Once all of that is set, move on over to Enhance and go down to Convert to black and white. I'm not going to use hotkeys today. except for Control Z if we make mistakes, but there are plenty of hotkeys you can use to go directly to the things that you need to get done. Now, hurrying quickly here, we want to find something that looks best with its most basic settings. I like vivid landscapes for this shot. You can see it preview in the screen up here as well as down here if you move it over far enough. Now that still looks really bland to me. We're going to put a bunch of contrast in it, and I'm also going to lighten up the photo a touch. There we go. Now you want to go until a point where this hair over here doesn't look too pixely, so that's a little bit too bright for us now. There, that doesn't look too bad. I'll leave it there. Once you're satisfied with what you look at, click OK, it stays. Now, duplicate your layer. You want to work in a bunch of layers in case you make a mistake or you'd like to fix something or you just don't like how something turns out. Go to Adjust Lighting. We're going to adjust the brightness and contrast. I want this photo to look very sharp, with very few imperfections, and I'm kind of going for like a Vogue type of photo. So I'm going to up the brightness a lot. Again, not so much that this over here becomes very pixely and very flat, and a little bit of contrast here to make the blacks pop out a bit more. There. That's not too bad. We'll leave it at that. Big difference from what we started with here. Duplicate the layer again. I want to get rid of this little birthmark I've got on my face, as well as the dark shadows I have under my eyes. So I go to this spot healing brush tool, and I'm going to adjust the pixels lower. You want, when you're using spot healing, to make the brush just about the right size of the blemish you're getting rid of. Click and drag, and voila, spot disappears. You might need to touch up a little bit, especially if your spot is a bigger area like I'm about to use for these here, dark circles. You have to be patient with this tool. It sometimes doesn't listen to what you say. It often will, because it takes its correction from the pixels surrounding it, sometimes you'll get a result you don't like. That's okay. You can either use Control Z and try again. Your results will always be different. Or just spot heal right over top of it. It usually will fix itself out. There's a good example. I didn't particularly want that to be so white, so I'll just go over it again. It'll sort itself out. If you're feeling particularly impatient with the spot healing tool, then you can use this tool here, called the Clone Stamp tool. The way that it works is you can manually sample from another part of the picture using Alt. Pick your spot that you want your color to come from, and then your brush will directly copy whatever is there. Now, because the shading is very difficult in this photo, I don't particularly want to use that one, so I'm just going to keep using this until I feel plastic enough for this picture. I'm going to do this on the other side. There we are. So, better, not perfect. I need to work on it a little longer to get exactly what I want. Perhaps a little bit brighter, etc. It's fine. It looks okay. Duplicate the layer again, just in case. And we're going to add a little bit of eye makeup to my face, even though I'm particularly not fond of makeup. So set your brush size to just about the thickness that you want your makeup to be, and I want it to be black, of course. Opacity at 100%. I'll show you why later. We're just going to gently go over where we want to darken up. Now, this looks very pixely and terrible right now, but I'm going to fix it up in just a moment. There we are. Not too bad. Now, go to Filter and go down to Blur and select the Gaussian Blur option. This will blur your black, allowing something from underneath to come through. Now we want it blurry enough that there aren't any sharp lines, but we don't want it so blurry that it disappears. So I'm going to leave it right about there, at 12.2 pixels. Click OK for that, and then you can mess with your opacity for how dark or how light you want it to be until it looks natural. So that's not bad. I'm going to create another layer and do the top of my eye really quickly. So I am running out of time with my rambling. There we go. Just a bit here. There we go. Okay. Do the same thing. Now, you always have your Control F option up here to repeat exactly what you did before. This doesn't look particularly bad at this point, but sometimes you want your top lid to be a little bit lighter just because I've got so much shadow in that picture already. I'm going to knock my opacity down to about 60% here. Not bad at all. Okay. Moving on really quickly. Let's mess around with some text. I'm not going to worry too much more about this photo. It's not bad. Now, my text tool has some issues loading sometimes. I've already been messing around with it today, so it appears to not be giving me that. Also, I was working off the original photo, so we're going to have to shrink our text size way down until it seems to fit. I'm going to 36%. I'm going to name my album This Is My Creation. And I've already selected the text I want to use, which is Tyranti-Solid LET. I use this text for pretty much everything, and it's the text I use for my signature at the bottom of my pictures. Of course, with Photoshop there are many, many options, so it is simply your preference. I'm going to make this a bit bigger. That looks about almost perfect, actually, and shrink the text box down in case I were to use these little altering tools right here to warp the text, to arc, or to do other fancy things. I'm not going to do this today. I would like my text to be a little bit wider, a little bit bigger, and I'm going to use my arrow keys to shift this over. There, like that. Awesome. Because the text kind of disappears into the darkness of my hair, I've decided that I want the word is to be white, and I want this majority of the word creation to also be white. That gives a nice contrast and feel. Because I'm quickly running out of time, let's do this really fast. I've already selected the bevel I want here in the effects option under layer styles. I want this bevel. I click apply. Oh, excuse me, I have to click off here. There, this bevel, click apply. Now I've got a bevel. It's ridiculously large right now, so we're going to click this little F down here, and we have our options for the photo. I can change the direction of the light. 153 degrees is fine, and I want that bevel much smaller, so I scale that down. It gives it kind of a 3D effect. I can choose whether I want the bevel to go up or down. Let's leave it down for now. There are other things you can mess around here, the inner and outer glow. I like sticking an outer glow on my stuff sometimes. Scaling it real down just gives it a bit of a shadow and a little bit of blur around the white there. That's nice. And I'll leave everything there. You just kind of have to mess around with your preferences for your text styles and such. You just play. You play until it looks good. And that's how we do a basic cover. There we are. Good day to you, my fellow classmates and friends. I hope you do well with your journeys in Photoshop. Experiment. That's the best way to learn how to use Photoshop properly. Alright, talk to you guys later. Ciao.